Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Tea with me, Alisha Bowker Mudrock. Still in California, but we're heading back tonight. So I'll be back in my other environment soon. Thankful again to my parents and our house is safe. But today we have my friend, mentor, and incredible human, Liz Lasky, here to share with us a bit about this theme of leading lady energy. Liz is many things. She is an accredited coach with the ICF. She is an LCSW. She is a professor. She is an author. She owns her own business. She does badass things. She's a mom. She's a Canadian who lives in America, also American. She's just everything. But more than that, she is just a really incredible human who funny story. We'll tell you how we met. I'll tell it in a second. But just this incredible human who our paths randomly crossed. It was very serendipitous, but she'll be in my life forever. And when I think of leading lady energy, she immediately came to mind. She's definitely such a role model and mentor for me. So I have her here to share some of her wisdom with all of you. And maybe she'll even give us some wisdom about what Bravo shows we should be watching, because she's also an aficionado in that, the most important one. But thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So I will just tell this story really fast because it's funny, but Liz, I saw her on, I don't know, like Instagram. She was advertising a free thing she was doing. And so I signed up. And the next thing I know, my credit card, which I like never am that person, but I like randomly was checking it because my husband says I should do it every day, but I don't. I do it once a month. And I had this weird charge and I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, did this random lady scam me? Like, what? How did she charge me? Because it was like educational something. Like it was the same day. It was very odd. So I like sent her like probably not the nicest email, but I was kind of like, please like get me off your stuff. Like I don't appreciate this, blah, blah, blah. And then what I really appreciated is she not only emailed me back, but she called me. She also let me know that my voicemail still had an out of office message from a trip I had taken a year ago. So I was like, oh, thank you. Because I never use that work phone very much. But she was just like, I'm so sorry. That wasn't me. And I believed her. It really wasn't. And I ended up signing up, which long story short, enrolled in her coaching course, got my certification from that, was in her business course. So it was well worth it. But I still laugh about that because I was so pissed. I remember being like, this is not okay. You're a scam.
I know. And it broke my heart a little bit too, because for 1 second I was like, did we scam somebody? Like, how did that work? Is my assistant running like a side biz?
Right.
And we went through everything. Oh my God, we combed through everything. And then I was like, oh my God, I just feel so bad because we got to talk to her and figure it out. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and in hindsight, I'm like, she didn't have my credit card. I don't know like how it could have been you, but I was just convinced that the internet stole it somehow. And I was like, she just did it.
It's the non-trustworthy face.
Yes, look at that.
Yeah.
That's a scam artist if I ever seen one. No, exactly. I'm just joking. She is not a scam artist, people. Just a disclaimer. But anyways, so I'm so thankful that I trusted it, that we're here, and that you reached out and really nurtured that, because you could have also been like, well, fuck you, man. I'm out. So I appreciate it. But in theme with this leading lady energy, and also I will say, the reason this book even is here is because of Liz's year-long program that I was in and her guidance and support. So I decided to kind of lean into this idea of leading lady energy. And when that phrase is brought up, what kind of comes to mind for you, or what do you sort of think that means, or share a bit about thoughts on that topic?
When I hear leading lady, I immediately think of the Broadway stage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that is it. Like the 11 o'clock hour, bring it on home, like that big, beautiful, belting voice who's just commanding attention from everyone, and just has that stage presence, that being that people are so drawn to. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like effortless though.
Yes. And that's definitely, I draw a lot of parallels to the stage in the book. I did a lot of theater growing up, not anymore, but all the way through college. So it was a fun time in my life, but I too think it is such a good visual, and it can be applied in such practical ways to our day to day. But just having that idea of that Broadway star, the church play, the whatever kind of stage person, and what that leading lady looks like. So in your own life, I mean, maybe you don't resonate that is your energy, but I think that is how people perceive you in many ways. So maybe what is some of your own stories or journey to embracing this more commanding stage presence role in different areas of your life, or what's been challenging about that, what's worked, what's not worked?
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's funny because when I was growing up, I also was in, all the plays and took all the dance classes and took the acting classes. I remember like saying to my parents, like, will you support me if I go for acting? And they're like, absolutely not. And then I went the total other way and got a PhD. Like I remember having that desire to do it. But at the same time, and this is a true story, my actual best friend really is a leading lady on Broadway, Olivier
I love that.
nominated, Grammy nominated. And I always knew that on the stage, at least, I wasn't really that.
Mm.
So I always had a little bit of, I guess, insecurity
Mm-hmm.
about really being front and center on the stage and as a kid, and knowing that I was still good but I wasn't really
That's
Broadway bound, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I am sure that made me a little defensive at times, and I think that in some ways led me to always have that instinct of like, I want to be on the metaphorical stage. I want to be out there. And my insecurity had waves of me being able to really embody that leading lady energy, because the moment that I could surrender to my insecurity and accept it and be a goof and say, honestly, I'm not good at that, or yes, I made a mistake, or hey, we looked through all the records and we don't have your
We
bank
did not
account
charge
number.
you. Yeah.
The more that I was able to sit into just being a human, that
Mm-hmm.
was when I found in my life I was able to embody leading lady energy even more.
Mm.
And I even remember, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I came up in the Magnet Theater, the Improv Theater, the Magnet Theater in New York City. And at the time, the Magnet Theater was the place for musical improv. And
Mm.
I had done improv my whole life, all the way from high school. And I lived in Toronto and went to the University of Toronto. And I did stuff with Second City in Toronto. And then I came to New York. I immediately took classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade. Many people know that
Yeah.
theater, UCB.
Yeah.
And then one night I saw this musical improv show, which was like regular improv, but with a full band, and they made up a full musical.
Wow.
And I thought, this, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I thought, I have to study this. And I took every class, got into every group, did whatever I could until I really made it to like the be all and end all of that time, which was being on a house team at the Magnet Theater, which meant that
Wow.
we performed once a week at the theater. And it was a very special group. It was all women, it was
Mm.
all leading ladies. And essentially, like improv, like regular straight improv, we would get a suggestion from the audience. And from that one suggestion, we would make up
You
an
would go.
entire musical from start to finish.
Wow.
And I felt the strongest pulls of leading lady energy when I felt comfortable in my body, when I felt comfortable with who I was, when I felt like I had, my act together. And
Mm-hmm.
those moments or those nights and those shows where I would think things like, oh, I'm thinking about something else, or I'm stressed about this, or I just had a fight with my boyfriend at the time, or like or my shirt felt too short, like whatever it was. And I was in that self-doubt phase. I had a
Yeah.
terrible show and I wasn't able to embody that energy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things for me is that if I want to show up truly as a leader, then
Mm-hmm.
I got to have my own ducks in a row. Like I got to feel good about myself. I got to feel good about the way that I'm showing up. I got to feel good about the way that I'm presenting myself, about what I'm saying. And one of the things I say a lot, and I'm sure you've heard me say this 1,000 times, you can't listen to the haters, because anyone who shows up and they become this leading lady,
Yep.
anyone who gets into that zone, we're always going to have haters, which by the way, I think is great, because once you're controversial, I love that. But
You're
we
doing
can't
something
trust the
right.
haters. Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't trust the haters. But the other side of that I feel equally as strong about is you also can't trust the lovers.
Facts.
You just got to trust yourself.
Yep.
So to me, those are intrinsically linked, that you have
Mm-hmm.
to have that sense of self in order to be a
Mm-hmm.
real leader.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely, that is a piece within the book that I too, in my own journey, that's such a foundational part of it, is really finding your own self-worth and your own self-esteem, like really need to be solid. And that's where you need to even start the conversation. It's not about everything else or the what or the noise around you. It's really just about you and your relationship with self. Because if you don't believe in you, if you don't feel like you even know where you're going or have the ability to create that direction or vision or trust it, then you can't step into that leading role, right? That leading person is carrying the show, like people
Yeah.
eyes are on her. She has to be very clear, and her conviction is a word that we spoke about a lot last week with our guest Tosh. Just like you have to be very convicted in where you're going. You have to be sure of it, and
Yeah.
stuff will come against you, right? People will fluff you up in a way that isn't helpful, and people are going to try and tear you down and get their agendas on board. And we're constantly living in this sort of dissonance. But if we are clear about who we are, where we're going, what we're wanting to do, we can constantly keep trying to make those adjustments to be as aligned as possible. And that's where we're going to live in that best energy,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's sort of what you're getting
It's
at
a
in
tall,
those
but it's a
areas.
tall order though, because
100%.
I've done the opposite side too, which to me was, I'm using the word famous for lack of a better term, but I functioned, this was probably when I was, in my 30s, and I was starting to build my business and I was coaching a lot of single women. And in some ways, I went about it in the opposite way. And that
Mm,
I was letting that energy, or what I thought was leading lady energy, I was letting that feed me and fill truly an empty bucket.
yeah.
Because if you try and do it for the fame, or if you do it for the recognition, or if you do it for something that's external, you will constantly, constantly be chasing it,
Yep.
because it's not what you really want.
Right.
What you really want is to, whatever it is, to feel loved, or believe you're lovable, or have something to do on a Saturday night, or what you really want is for someone to actually hear your voice, or
Yep.
someone to take you seriously. Like those are the deep things that, and these, what I say, empty buckets, because it's an empty bucket syndrome. Like we're just filling a bucket that has no bottom.
Right.
If we're trying to do that, then we will never arrive at the place. And that's why I say, and why I think it's so important to bring up insecurity in this conversation. I'm sure a lot of people would be surprised to hear that I have large bouts of insecurity, but I certainly do on the
Yeah.
daily. You've seen those.
Yeah.
I'm no stranger to like having a little cry at my desk, or thinking, "What is life?" Because I
Who
am,
am
I am a
I?
person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I call my best friend all the time and be like, "Am I gonna make it?"
I'm just like, yes, Liz.
And she's like, I think we already have, you know. So it's like, we have to know what comes first. And it did, now being in my old, in my 40s, my young 40s. I feel like I'm in such a different stage of that than I was in my 20s and in my 30s. I think that's just a developmental piece that
Yeah.
in my 20s and 30s, I was like going for it to the point where I look back at myself now and be like, oh my God, that was like mildly embarrassing. And I'm sure in 10 years, I'll look back at this and think it's embarrassing too. But the more I've aged and grown and had more life experiences, the more I felt, um, secure in myself and what I think and what I believe in and what my values are and what's important to me. Because I think that is what I think of when I see a leading lady. It's someone who doesn't give a shit about what other people think.
Right.
It's someone who is like, we're going to be respectful and we can love each other.
Yep.
And I want to be really clear with what I think about it. And you can tell me what you think about it.
Yep.
And then we can figure out what we want to do from there.
Right.
And not have that be a threat, which was why I feel so glad that I was able to drop my defenses and able to drop my, you know, the things that were holding me back to really be able to say like, this is really what I believe. But it's scary. It can be very scary.
Yeah. And I think to the point of this analogy of leading lady as well, the idea is you can be the leading lady of your life. You're the only one that can fill this role. Nobody else can do it. And you're also
Yeah.
not supposed to be the leading lady of someone else's life. Like that's not that, like when you felt like I'm just not on the stage, I'm not that person, like that wasn't your role, right? The role you're in, the one you're filling, this is your leading lady role. And there's enough for everybody. And I think we've talked about this a lot in our own like the coaching business side too, but just that scarcity mentality, which can feed animosity, jealousy, worry, being very reactive versus thoughtful. And instead of it being that there's just the one role, everyone can have their own role. That's the whole point. It's just we have to believe it's there. We have to believe that we actually are fit for the part and then figure out what we're doing with it. Because to me, it's just baffling the amount of times I've thought just in my own life of when I've happily handed over the reins of where I'm going and what I'm doing to other people who maybe weren't ill-intentioned, but they aren't me. They don't know. Like nobody can make those choices in the best way that I can make them for myself. And what a sad time when I didn't trust myself to do that. And I thought somehow all these other people had those answers more. And I think that's part of, like you said, you can't know what you don't know, getting older, having more experiences. But I guess for you, what was a helpful way to even reflect on that or check into to keep growing and building and getting closer to where you want to be versus being on autopilot and maybe not even realizing, you know?
Oh, I just had it this week.
Okay.
Okay, this month in the last 2 weeks. Okay, I haven't talked about the story yet. I haven't written about it. I haven't even asked her if I can write about it, so I won't use her name.
Okay.
But okay, a couple weeks ago, I went to London to visit, by the way, my best friend who was in
The one on Broadway.
a musical. Yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, I said to her one night, I said, "What's it like to have a talent?" And she was like, "Shut up. Someone asked you that today." And it was true. I did a VIP day with someone in London and she basically asked me the same thing that day, which is just made me crack up because we all have some intelligence.
We do.
So I have several very close friends, but two of them, one is Casey and one is Jen. And Casey is the one that I grew up with, and Jen was my roommate in college, and we're still best friends. So I call them best friends on the other side, like they're best friends-in-law. You know what I mean? So Jen and I went to London to stay with my girlfriend Casey, and we were calling it our inspiration tour. And we were going to just fill up. We were going to take in what we could take in.
Yep.
We went and ate our way through London. We took in art and theater and beauty and delight and history. We went to the Churchill War Rooms, and honestly, highlight of my life. Truly a better person for being there. Went to high tea with the most like delectable teeny tiny things. And I don't eat dairy, so mine were vegan, and it was like mind blowing. Like everything about it was just, it was just, it was inspirational. And one of the things that the three of us are always talking about is not I was going to say self-improvement, but it's not self-improvement. It's like that feeling of how are we going to play to the next level? How are we going to get to the next space? Like what's our involvement? Where are we going to
Right.
go? Like we never we and it's like, you know, you read those memes about the girl chat and like you got this, you this is it like on steroids
I
live.
love it. I love it.
So the entire time I was, and I had been thinking about this for myself for the last little bit about how I wanted to expand my business. And we don't only talk about business, talk about, you know, like our love life and our kids and like
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of thing too. But I had been feeling something that I was ready for some expansion on some level in my business. And I had an idea that maybe it was coming from a book and that I had a book idea, but that sounded like an awful thing to do. And I know you just wrote a book, so you know it can be terrible.
Yes.
And, you
Yes.
know, I have a 4-year-old and like I'd rather play outside from 4 to 8 p.m. instead of sitting at a computer and being like, chapter one, you know, like I
Right.
just don't have
Right.
the
Right.
energy for that right now. And I was like, okay, then I guess it isn't a book. And I thought to myself, there's got to be someone around who can help. There's got to be someone around who is doing what you're doing, but one level ahead.
Yeah.
So I gave it some thought, and it was someone who I didn't really get along with. We did not get along, but if we just met at a cocktail party, we probably wouldn't have kept in touch. We're just very different energies. We have a
Mm-hmm.
ton in common. She certainly is not watching The Real Housewives, and my Q4 goal is to watch more television. So like right
I'm
away, you
obsessed.
know, um, and I thought, you know what, that's actually what I want. Like her business structure is actually what I want. And I thought to myself, you better humble yourself, girl, and get on her calendar.
Yeah.
And the wild part is we are perceived as direct competitors.
Mm.
And I booked a call with her and said, I want to acknowledge we play in the same realm. We could be direct competitors, but take me past the 500,000 mark to a million. So show me your structure of you getting 6-figure months. How am I going to get there? How can you
Yeah.
help me do that? And honestly, I felt so delighted that
Mm.
her response was of pure generosity
Wow.
and mapped out my whole next year and a path to 7 figures. That
Amazing.
isn't even gonna be hard.
I love that.
And so much so that I booked it again and talked to her again this week. And I even tried to book someone who helps her with some of her Facebook ads. And this I thought was very funny that the person who runs the Facebook ads said, I can't take you. You two are competitors. Like you're gonna have the same audience. She wouldn't even take us, but this girl was showing up with such confidence and such of the mindset
Abundance.
of abundance, and there is more than enough for all of us.
Right.
And I thought, you know what? That is who I want to be. That's the generosity I want to be able to exude and give.
Yeah.
And I really had to talk to myself and say, oftentimes we're just jealous of people because they have what they want. But I showed up in a I am so impressed with you. Help me. And
I love
her
that.
response was absolutely, tell me in which ways I can support you. And I
Wow.
thought that is like a real testament to our power and us showing up as the people we are.
Yeah. That's such a
Isn't that nuts
great
to be
story
running
on
my
so many
business?
levels. No, yeah. I mean, one, I think it shows that we have to get out of our own way sometimes. And
Yeah.
and this goes back, I think, to your idea of that defensive nature, how you've learned to listen to it and use it to your advantage. Like let those guards down and think of like, if I'm getting defensive or I'm envious
Yeah.
or that's something I want, like, how can I lean into this versus trying to hide behind it? Like a cat, like my cat with his claws out, like scratching everything. So I think that's a beautiful continued lifelong lesson that you're learning, but using as power, not something to get in your way. And then the fact that this other professional could meet you there too, and also have a generous spirit as well, because we don't know, right? You could have gone in there and she could have still been an asshole, or still, kept her cards close. But
Yeah.
I
Or
do
give me
think,
bad advice.
right, like led you in the wrong direction, right? But
Yep.
I think it's so real that you can reach the people you reach because you're you. She's going to reach the people she reaches because she's her. It's not, it's competition, but it's not like
It's not.
there's a lot of us. We all need different things. You're not for everyone. I'm not for everyone. She's not.
Totally.
So it's important we're all out there. And I would want it to be that we're all doing good work and we're helping each other do good work, instead of being like running the market where you're maxed out at some point, and then you just have bad other like coaches and professionals out there hurting people, not helping. So that's huge.
Yeah, it was a pivotal point for me actually. And I only kind of realized that afterwards, because there was some level of embarrassment and shame of asking for help. And I think people
Yep.
look at me in a business of my size and think like, what questions would she have? And and for any of us, no matter what we're doing, whether it's like you're learning to tap dance or how to bake a cake,
Yeah.
being in a place of learning and being open to learn can be very threatening for people. And
Yes.
for me to get back into a learner's mind was something I really had to check myself for.
Yeah.
And because going back to this definition of leading lady, the
Right.
leading lady is open to receiving.
So she has to be, or it won't
Yeah,
work.
right. And that was so I felt like I pushed myself, and I was glad I took that chance.
No, that's huge. I'm excited for you, because then I get to reap benefits from you growing too. Like it
Well,
just trickles down, because you help the people that you're helping. It's important to have a leader that's constantly
for those
growing,
of you who
you
are
know.
listening to this, I just want to let you know that every time I hang up with Alisha on the phone, I say, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me.
I'm here for her detail
You
oriented
and I
mind.
was just gonna say,
So,
like you and I, Alicia is so like, you have so many skills that I don't have. And obviously it's a little bit of a joke because I want you to be happy and go do what you want to do, but also I never want you to leave me, because your genius and your intelligence is being able to be very organized. My genius, my intelligence is
the creative freedom.
creative, yeah, big
Yes.
picture thing. So
Yes.
you and I are such a perfect match in that realm. And I think part of it too of the leading lady stuff is you have to be you have to be open and willing to accepting the type of intelligence you have. For some of us,
Yes.
it's people. For some of us, it's numbers. For some of us, it's music
Yes.
or singing.
Yep.
Mine is people.
Yep. Yep. Very
So
much so.
I we have to accept that. Otherwise, we're back to empty bucket syndrome.
Right. Or you're back to like never really feeling confident in the role because it's not the right role for you, because you're trying to put yourself in a box you don't fit in. Right. And I think in that idea of learning, as we're kind of like wrapping this up, but just, yes, there are such things as shows with one person in them, far and few between, right? But a leading lady has a cast. So you need these other folks to make your character look good, to make the plot move, to make your lines make sense. And so it is, how do we utilize and collaborate? And no one's a threat. Everyone is there to
Yes.
help. And if you're helping me, I'm here. If I'm helping you, you're here. Like, it all is give and take. And I think we just unfortunately have just got to a space where everyone's just out for number one. But we weren't meant to live like that. Humans are tribal, humans are communal. We can't do this alone. And I think the hardest part of being a business owner is it's so isolating. But that's where it's been incredible to find these communities and reach out to other professionals and find support, because I can't know what I don't know. I have a different way to look at it. We can all learn from each other, but collaboration is not giving away your secrets and your success. It's actually getting stronger and growing bigger and becoming more empowered and confident. So I think that is what I've appreciated a lot about our relationship. I think it's great, this example you've given of a direct not necessarily ever a friend, but a direct competition, using that as a collaboration, the way in which
Yeah.
you influence so many and help, and it creates spaces where folks can find collaborations within that. It's just a beautiful gift you're giving, and happy to be here for it. And I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
Is there any last thoughts, takeaways, pieces? You've given us a lot, but just any last summary that you want to leave
Yeah,
our
I just
folks
want
with?
to actually acknowledge you because you in the last, I mean, I'll just take it from the last year or so. Speaking of leading lady, you are certainly a leader in our community, and you have accomplished so much in the last year. And I just feel so proud of our relationship and our connection and all the work you've done. And even this Tuesday tea, like so much has come from your own security and your own way to really be a leading lady. And I feel very lucky to be part of that too.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate it. Is there anything I'll put your website in the newsletter? Is there anything you want to, I don't know, promote or share or let people know about?
You
Or
know it. I'm Dr. Liz Lasky. You can visit me at lizlasky.com, Livlasky. I am your go-to girl if you want to learn how to coach or if you want to get coached. I do work a lot with therapists and help therapists build business. And if that's you, give me a call.
all right. Well, thanks, guys. We will see you all next week, same time. Hopefully, Al will be back in my house, which I should be, and we'll go from there. So thanks for being here today, and I'll see you guys later.